Today's webinar, as you can see, guys, is enthusiastically and proudly sponsored by Berger Solar. Berger Solar from Germany is the market leader in floor finishes, adhesives, and penetrating oils. Since 1926, Berger Solar have been innovating these technologies and continue to set market standards. So please check out their contact details in the bottom right-hand corner. We'd like to thank them for their ongoing support of our webinars as well. So thank you to Berger Solar. Just before we get underway, guys, just some events we've got coming up in the next 6 weeks. So firstly, for anyone who's on here is in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast, my home area, we've got the ATFA Maroochydore Trade Night happening tomorrow night between 5 and 8 p.m. at the Maroochydore RSL. So it's a fantastic night, free event for members and their guests, and we've obviously got 16 exhibitors coming along as well and some guest speakers. So if you're in the area of the Sunshine Coast, please drop into the Maroochydore RSL tomorrow night. Then if you're down in Victoria, guys, we've got our last Assess and Timber Floors for the year, which is our most popular workshop, and that's on the 11th and 12th, so next Wednesday, Thursday in Glen Waverley. We've got 2 spots still available if anyone's still interested, so please let me know as soon as possible if you'd like to participate at the Assess and Timber Floors, which Phil will be hosting down in Melbourne next week. Then to our ACT members, the 23rd of October, we've got our very first Canberra demonstration night happening there in Canberra at the Harmony German Club. We've got 8 demonstrations booked in for the night, and registrations are now open on the ATFA website. So if you have any questions regarding our events and to find out some of the final events coming up in the year, we have a WA Golf Day on the 15th of November and the Geelong Trade Night also on the 12th of November. So please put those dates in your diaries. Everyone now seems to be ready to go. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat bar and we'll go through them with Phil during the webinar. But I'd like to present you to Phil Buckley to present today's webinar. Hello, Phil. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, unfortunately. Can everyone hear me?
We've got you loud and clear.
Very good. Hey, everybody. Another shout out to Berger Solar for sponsoring these webinars. They're really great. They're good guys too. If you ever have a trouble with your coatings or you're doing a funny floor, you just give them a call and Kurt will help you out. They're really good guys. So that's what it's about at ATFA. So it's not just the information we present in webinars like this or the stuff we've got online. It's the people that you can call on the phone. And that's people at ATFA, but it's also our partners in the industry. Having that talk to someone before a problem becomes a debacle is a really good idea. So today we're looking at insurance work. So insurance work is interesting. It's an interesting beast. So it makes up a large portion of what we do as ATFA inspectors. So insurance work, and that's 2 parts. One, it's inspecting damage to properties before an insurance claim is certified to try and ascertain if something is pre-existing damage, if it's an installation fault, or if it's an event, an insurable event. And then we also look at insurance work that has not met customer or client or insured's expectations. And part of what we're going to talk about today is that those expectations for an insurance repair are not the same as the expectations, or not often not the same as you might expect for a normal retail or commercial work. And a lot of that's got to do with the emotional state that the insured is in by the time that we get there. So who is involved? So you've got the home or the property that's been damaged, and you've got the family that live there. You've then got an insurance assessor who assesses a property with or without the help of someone like an ATFA inspector. You've then got an insurance builder who goes to site, backwards and forwards, trying to assess the damage, trying to scope the damage, and then they are managing a bunch of contractors, and that's where we come in. One of the important things is to know from the time that the roof gets smashed and the floor gets flooded to the flooring contractor being there, sometimes they've waited 6 weeks for an insurance assessor, and they've waited another 5 weeks or 6 weeks for an insurance builder who goes round in circles with you, and then you finally get there. Often by the time you get there as a flooring contractor, the family, that poor family on the left, they've had enough. Okay, so they've been frustrated and at times let down by this process and disappointed with what they thought they were insured for and what they're actually insured for, that you can often walk into an insurance repair very much on the back foot, and none of that can be your fault. So that's one of the first things to be aware of, is not just the people involved, but the time it takes for those people to do their job and get you to site. So we've got the insurance companies, okay? And the big insurance companies, your IAG, Suncorps is the main ones, okay? So they are in contact directly with the homeowner, and the homeowner gets that insurance builder. So at times, the flooring contractor is communicating with the homeowner, but at times the flooring contractor is either explicitly advised not to speak to the flooring contractor, or they're encouraged not to speak to the homeowner, so the flooring contractor and the homeowner, that they want everything to go through the insurance builder. Now, anyone who's had anything to do with this can know that insurance builders, when a big event happens, like it seems to happen every 3 months or so in different parts of the country, your average insurance assessor or the person working at the insurance builder, those supervisors, can be looking in up to something like 200 or 300 different claims at a time. And they just don't have the time and the resources and the brain bandwidth to manage all of your communication between you and your homeowner successfully. The problem, though, is that the homeowner gets the shits with you because they've told you something that doesn't happen, and it's not your fault. It's the insurance builder's fault because they were snowed under. Unfortunately, you can't throw the insurance builder under the bus because that's your pipeline of work. So that managing the communication in that Bermuda Triangle down there on the right-hand side is a real pain in the ass. And when it goes sideways, what happens is the homeowner complains to the insurance company, and the insurance company either throws you under the bus and says, Mint Floors is never working for any insurance property again, or the insurance builder goes under the bus because they say you haven't managed my client's expectations. So communication in this Bermuda Triangle down here on the right-hand side is really complicated. And again, you're dealing with someone who's frustrated before you get there. Okay, so that the very first thing to know is the communication and the emotions are complicated. So who's the insurance assessor? They work for the insurance company. Okay, they assess and validate the claim, and they provide reports, confirm policy limits, and ensure the scope of repairs is appropriate, and the repairs can be carried out for the listed event. They trying to do their job. Sometimes they'll ask out for, hey, we've got an insurable event here, but I don't think it's actually caused by the rain. I think that this is a furphy. Can you come and have a look? Who's a loss adjuster? A loss adjuster is contracted by a company, and they carry out a similar as the insurance assessor. But they are like a third party. So again, insurance assessors, when shit hits the fan and 40,000 homes get damaged, they just don't have the capacity to do all of their assessments in-house, and they get loss adjusters. So they get contracted third parties to go out and assess claims on their behalf. Repair coordinators work for the insurance company. Okay, he has a bit of a building background, he or she, and their role is to review scopes of work and costings and see if they're in line with repairs. A little bit of a story on that one. So often the more the insurance builders work, so that's the panel builder, that next one, the more they work for an insurance company and the more they meet their KPIs, the higher their automatically approved threshold goes. So if you're working with a company that works for an RMA, for instance, and that builder's been working with them for 6 years with very few issues, they might have a $40,000 automatic approval limit, so that any repairs up to $40,000 are automatically approved and they don't go into it. Recently, I went to us. So recently there was a repair. We got the repair coordinator and the panel builder assigned to a job. And on a $13,000 job, they put through a $35,000 variation, and it was approved because that was under their limit. And then they put through a $175,000 variation on top of that. And that's when it went back up the tree and all the way up to the insurance assessor. And the insurance assessor says, no, something's not right here. Let's get ATFA. So it went all the way back to step one. Insurance assessor got ATFA, and I went down and had a look at this floor, and there would have been $1,500 worth of repairs required on the home. Okay, so they got greedy and they asked for $35,000 and got away with it. Then they thought they'll go again and ask for $175,000, and they ended up with nothing. Not only that, that panel builder was removed from that insurance company's books, and it caused them really big dramas. Now, it wasn't my intention to go out there causing issues, but there was nowhere near $175,000 worth of work that needs to happen to that floor. So this is a complicated process that has very little to do with you, but all of this puts the insurance assessor. There's always tension between the panel builder, the loss adjuster, the insurance assessor, and the insured, and by the time you get there, things are complicated. What about terminology? What do we have to do? So we have to do like for like, and this means replacing with the closest matching product available. With timber being a natural product, this would never be exactly the same, but select grade would be replaced with select grade and black butt would be replaced with black butt. This is a pain in the ass because like for like is interpreted very, very different by different insurance companies and different loss adjusters. Sometimes they will say, for instance, if you get a spotted gum floor, and there's a significant color difference between the old spotted gum and the new spotted gum, or tallowood, which ages with, darkens with age, or blue gum. Some will say, no, the species is a species, bad luck, we're going to join it right in the middle of the living room and the insured can go and jump. That sucks for you because you have to do what they say. You have to join it in the middle of the lounge room, and there is zero chance that the insured's going to be happy with it and not go looking for something to say that the floor should be replaced. They are 100% going to pick on your sanding and coating. They're 100% going to pick on your grading. They're 100% going to complain that you left the toilet seat up or you damaged the driveway because they're pissed off that they've got a red and pink floor that joins in the middle of their lounge room, and it was you following the instructions of the insurance company, and it's not your fault. Okay, so like for like is a pain in the butt, but that's what it means. What is a lifetime warranty? Well, a lifetime warranty is not quite a lifetime warranty. A lifetime warranty is offered generally relates to the workmanship and the quality of materials for the lifetime of the home where the work is undertaken by an insurance company. So if defects arise from poor materials or workmanship, then the problem would be rectified. It does not relate to wear and tear that is expected to degrade with time. So what you need to know with lifetime warranty is that what does that actually mean? It means you need to install it in accordance with the current industry and Australian standards and the Building Code of Australia. That's what that really means. It means that you've executed the works in line with all current standards, regardless of latent conditions, to make sure that it's as insurable and as warrantable as it can be. Why does this is get lent on a little bit because insurance companies don't like paying for the same repair twice. That's what really this is. So it doesn't mean you're going to get called back to fix a floor for a squeaky board in 27 years time. That's not what that means. It means that it's installed to the best of your knowledge and ability that complies with industry, Australian and building codes. Okay, industry standards, Australian standards, building codes, so that it's as warrantable as it could be. That's what that means. What if a lifetime warranty cannot be provided? So this is the latent condition thing. So what if you say that the subfloor is not suitable, it's not flat enough, the installation method is no longer recognized. If there's something that stops you from installing or executing the work in accordance with the current standards, then generally the insurance company will make a financial settlement with their insured and they will not conduct the repairs. So usually they will say, well, the cost of the repairs is blah, and we're going to give you that money because we cannot, with your current conditions to your home, which is not the insurance company's problem to fix, that's the homeowner's problem to update and maintain their home. Your current home does not meet the current building code or does not meet the current standards. So we can't repair it and provide a lifetime warranty. So we're going to cash settle you. Cash settlements happen for a few reasons. One is that, so the bad subfloor, the wet subfloor, the bad drainage, the not enough heights, the poor acoustics. Usually it's a subfloor drainage and ventilation issue. The other time to cash settle is if you get a really, really bad feeling about an insured and they're going to complain about something no matter what you do. If you think you've got expectations that cannot be reasonably met, you can advise the builder, if you've got a good relationship, saying, hey, I don't think there's a way for us to do this job without it blowing up in all of our faces. Why don't you recommend to the insurance company that they cash settle? The better your relationship is with your builder, the better the builder's relationship is with the loss adjuster or the insurance assessor, the more likely that is to be listened to. What happens is you recommend it once and they say no and it blows up and then they listen to you the second time. Okay. And that's what that cash, that's what the payout is. And then new for old. Insurance company has the option of repairing or pay the cost with the option of replacing a new for old to bring the floor into a similar condition of the way it was before it was damaged. Doesn't happen. Okay. So the new for old thing is like a laminate floor that gets broken and it's reasonably cheap to replace the whole laminate. And it's easier to do that than it is to do a little, patch in the corner. But generally speaking, that new for old with floors is not quite the same. All right. So some questions. Can there be differences between insurance companies on what they cover in terms of the way the damage occurs? Absolutely. There is a huge difference in premiums and there's a huge difference in insurance covers. One of the things that ATFA inspectors will not do, and we very much advise all of our members not to get involved, is do not provide advice to clients or homeowners or insurance builders or anyone on what their insurance company may or may not cover. Don't get involved, okay? Because there is no way to keep up with it. Even the same insurance policy interpreted by the same company on 2 different days will give you 2 different results. So there's absolutely massive differences. Is my furniture going to be included? Do I have to stop at the door? Will you sand and polish that extra room? Is the painting including? What about temporary accommodation? All of those questions, anything about that, don't get involved. I'm sorry, you need to speak to your insurance company, is the answer. Can there be differences between insurance companies on the extent of repairs offered, such as cutoff points? Yeah, I just covered that. Absolutely. Okay. Insurance companies do change their cover and it's in their product disclosure statement. But again, what you need to say is, look, I'm really sorry. I'm not sure about the intricacies of your policy. It's best you speak to your insurance company. Okay. So stay out of it. If the floor has not been installed correctly initially throughout and a small section needs to replace, what will happen? What will happen is a pain in the ass. So depending on whether the insured installed the product or it was pre-existing at the time of purchasing the property, what you do is you scope out the works for the repairs for your insurance builder, and you provide advice to them saying that the latent conditions or the existing system is no longer recognized. This is the cost, or this is the type of works required to bring it up to speed. At times, that's the one that's going to get cash settled. However, I have seen recently an increase in insurance companies paying for subfloor ventilation and drainage because they've covered a property they've insured a property for say 20 years, and it's a 20-year-old problem. And so because they've covered that for 20 years, they're kind of liable for upgrade of the building, because otherwise it was uninsured. Someone paid an insurance premium for 20 years on a product that was uninsurable. So it's becoming more common for insurance companies to do some minor-ish upgrades to bring things in line. But your job is to identify, well, this is the damage, these are the conditions, or these are the issues with the building or the floor that no longer meet current standards and codes, and this is what we would need to do to bring it into line. If it's too much, they'll cash settle. If it's reasonable, they might talk about it. My advice is do not do the work if you're going to put yourself in a position where something is not fit for purpose, or as something is not meeting the standards. The big one is solid timber floors being replaced on unsuitable subfloors. That's huge. It's not only does it go wrong, the cost of the rectification is ginormous. Okay, like you'll be lucky to get out of it for $50,000. So when do they pay out? They pay out when the floor does not carry a lifetime warranty, or the expectations of the homeowner are unrealistic. Okay, and it's never up to us. It's always up to the insurance company. So what's important to each party? The homeowner, they want minimal disruption. They want a floor that performs well, and they want a floor that is equal to or better than what they had. The problem is that they view their floor through very, very, very heavily tinted rose-colored glasses. Okay, the one that they had before was perfect in every way, shape, and form, and so that becomes difficult. The insurance company wants a satisfied homeowner. They want reasonable cost of repairs completed quickly so they can get insurance renewals. The insurance builder wants to meet their KPIs, which are usually based on few complaints and quick turnover. And what does the flooring contractor want? Well, we want to keep our insurance builder happy, so they keep giving us work, and we want to make sure we've got no warranties going forward. Okay, so everyone's got different understandings. To understand that this is a person's home and not a building site, and that the staff also understand that this is what the insurance builder wants of the flooring contractor. They want their owners to be treated with courtesy. They want to be on time, listen to them, and provide courtesy calls is important. At times, they don't want you to speak to them, though. They want you to present yourself in a neat and tidy manner. They want you to be knowledgeable about the pros and cons and about informed decisions. And they want your work to be undertaken efficiently, including sign-offs where required, and then you want to stick to OH&S. So your insurance builder wants you to raise absolutely no flags to the homeowner, and absolutely no flags back to the insurance company. The insurance builder doesn't want anyone to say anything about you. They don't want you mentioned at all. What does the flooring contractor want? Well, we want the supervisor to have a basic understanding of what we're trying to tell them. We want the floors should be removed before the contractor has viewed and assessed a damaged floor. Should not be removed before. Why shouldn't they be removed before? Okay, because we want to see how the old one performed, so we've got an idea of how the new one performed. The other thing that we want to do is we want to see how did it finish to the tiles? What was the color like? What was the grading like? How was it cut around the walls? What was the color of the coating? What was the gloss level of the coating? Okay, so it's really important that the insurance company don't ask you to quote on a floor that they've already removed. You need to see it in place. That the scope of work is either provided by a knowledgeable person, or preferably it's made in conjunction with you. Usually the second. Usually you will come up with a scope of works of something really basic. They'll say replace or repair the lounge room floor, and you'll tell them how. You want the supervisor to have a general understanding about what's acceptable in terms of final appearance. You don't want them siding with the homeowners all the time, but you also don't want them being so aggressively pushing back against the homeowners that the homeowner goes to the insurance company. They've got to walk a delicate line. And we want the builders to adhere to generally acceptable contract terms, including payment. One of the really nasty things that can happen, not as much anymore, but it certainly used to happen when I was more heavily involved on the tools, is that insurance builders would pay you all of your invoices once every 3 months. And if you had one bit of beading or one bit of skirting board that wasn't right, or one unhappy customer on one job, they'd hold back all your contract and hold back all your invoices. So be really, really careful that insurance builders are paying you on time. Okay, insurance works can tally reasonable sums. Generally, they won't pay progress payments at all. They're only paying you on completion, and they're trying to get the sign off by the homeowner and the insurance company, and trying to get their money in before they let your money go out. It just means that if you've got someone who owes you some money, an insurance builder, a panel builder, can owe you a lot of money in a reasonably quick time, and if that something happens to your relationship or something happens to that builder, you can get left holding the baby, so to speak. Or who's that? Who's that noisy person? Who's the noisy person? Can everyone hear that really horrible noise?
Yes.
Who is it? It's this person. Scott, it's you. Shut up. Thank you. All right, so we're back. Moving on. So what's important, okay? You need to be able to assess the damage. I would suggest that if you're going to undertake insurance work, there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. One is that the insurance builders, like I said, they might have 100 claims that they're managing. They don't want to have to call someone for vinyl and someone for timber and someone for laminate and someone for sanding and polishing and a different guy for parquetry. They really want to be able to call you about their flaws and you take care of it. That means that you need to have a really broad understanding of different flooring types and installation methods, and you need to be good enough to assess all those different methods. But you also need to be able to see what's wrong with it, what's wrong with the subfloor. You need to understand what's wrong with the product. Is the product discontinued? So I would suggest that there's probably no more difficult work to quote and scope than insurance repairs, because of the expectation of you to do it quickly and the expectation for you to do it at a high level across a variety of products with latent conditions that are difficult to identify. Okay, so you need to be able to assess the damage. You need to be able to assess the client expectations. You need to be able to assess the best course of action, and you need to be able to assess the installation environment. All of those things are more difficult with insurance work than they would be on almost any other work that we do. Okay, the two things that I always say the hardest for flooring contractors to do are concrete stairs are a pain in the ass, and assessing insurance works and managing insurance clients is hard to do. Okay. So the nature of the wood, you need to understand the characteristics of different flooring products, how to use moisture meters, how do timber and concrete subfloors affect performance. You need to be able to look at moisture affected floors, other like things like species and gradings. You need to understand what's repaired and needs to be replaced. You need to think about what's necessary for successful installation and what constitutes an acceptable repair. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that you need to keep on top of. So let's go into it. What are we going to do first? So you need to check that the subfloor is right to layover. This is not done very well. We have a new policy, so I don't necessarily know. I've a company in Sydney called Mint Floors, and we do quite a lot of insurance work. So I've got one of my senior project managers who looks after just does insurance work, and a couple of site supervisors. And this part of it, this site assessment part, is probably the thing that has bit us in the ass the hardest over the years, in that we missed a wet subfloor that blew a timber floor off and cost me 50 grand. But one of the other things that we do now with timber subfloors, so that second photo with that the LVL joist, we recommend that they get, and we pass on the details to the insurance builder, that they get a third-party subfloor drainage and ventilation specialist to quote and report on all subfloors before we will accept the scope of works. It's a free quote and service for them. They go out and look at it. We've got a sort of partner company that we work with. No, nothing in it for us. But what that does is that moves the liability from me to the insurance company and that third-party contractor. Third-party contractor looks and says, we need to do this to the drainage. We need to do this to your ventilation. Here's a quote. Now, the insurance company can say, well, we're not paying for that, and the homeowner's not paying for it. We're going to cash settle you. The insurance company can say, right, well, we accept that. We're going to pay for it. Or the homeowner can say, we accept that. We're going to pay for it. But no matter which way you look at that, if there's subfloor ventilation and drainage recommended by that third-party contractor and it doesn't go ahead, we don't do the floor. Okay, and we haven't pissed anyone off by doing that, because we are saying, well, we need to provide a lifetime warranty, and this expert in that field, it's not my choice, it's not Mint's choice, it's that expert contractor that's directly with you. They've said you need to do it and you've said no, so unfortunately we can't continue. That has not caused me any troubles at all, and it's saved me so many headaches, and insurance companies love it. Okay, so that's a really big tip. But you need to check for moisture content. You need to check for flatness. You need to check for suitability. So like today, we had a floor that got pulled up, and it was 130mm ironbark installed over strips of 12mm plywood as battens. Okay, now obviously that's not okay. So that's got heaps of problems with it. The 12mm is not thick enough. The battens need to be they need to be able to trail glue. Like there's 1,000 things wrong with that stops all that work, and we go back to the insurance company and say, you've got latent conditions there and an installation method that's not recognized, can't be warranted. This is what's needed to change it. Who's going to pay for it? Okay, happens every day. You need to check out the old floor before you remove it. So you want to check There you go. Crappy battens on the top right-hand side. You want to check the thickness of the timber. You want to check how it finishes to the walls. The other thing that you really want to do, and I get my guys to do this, is they walk through. We used to take photos and we now do videos. We walk through and video everything from the gutter out the front to the back door that we're going to leave at. We'd look at spots on the driveway and oil drips. We look at damage to door jambs. We look at marks on floors. We look at damage to tiles. We then look at the walls inside where they would need to be painted or not painted and damage to doors. We look at the kitchen joinery to see if there's any damage on it. We then look at how is the floor finished to the tiles? What is the grading of the floor? Are there any gaps in the floor? What's the color of the floor? What's the gloss level of the floor? We do really slow, high resolution walkthroughs. They take about 5 minutes, and we video it when our first guys get to site. It does a whole bunch of things. One, it proves that the quality of the floor that we replaced is higher than the quality of the floor that they had. It proves that the color and the grading and the finishing to tiles and edges is consistent. It proves that we didn't drip the oil on the driveway, that we didn't damage the wall, and that the kitchen was already knocked about. Okay, that was actually how it all started. So one of the other things is, yes, you want to check the old floor out, but you want to check the old everything out, because the pissed off customer at the end of this 19-month process is desperate to throw something at someone. And if you are the last one in there as the flooring contractor, they're going to blame it on you. I got blamed for a mantelpiece that got pulled apart the other day, and it had nothing to do with us. We had a video of it sitting in the front yard before we turned up, but they were going to charge me $19,000 to replace it, and it had absolutely nothing to do with us. We were just the last people there. Okay, so videos. You want to look, yeah, so look, here we go. We look at colors of the coating. We want to look at the sanding and polishing. We want to look at discoloration, all of that sort of stuff. We want to make sure we're protecting solid timber floors from subfloor seepage and drainage. Okay, so one of the big ones is if you get an old timber floor that was, say, old cypress pine, old radiata pine, old kauri pine, if you've got old Tassie oak in Victoria, if you've got old Queensland ironbark myrtle or something like that in Queensland, in a Queenslander that gets damaged in a flood, it was all installed over really bad subfloors, but it wasn't kiln dried. So it was all installed at 17% moisture content. It doesn't matter that it's wet. You go back and you put a 10% moisture content timber in there and it grows up to 14 or 15%. And the subfloor is the same, the species of timber is the same, but the age of the timber matters. So when you put that new timber floor in there and it explodes, it's your fault. Okay, you did like for like, you used the same species, the same size and the same grading, installed in the same way, but the old one wasn't kiln dried, it was air dried because it was 50 years old. The new one is kiln dried and it's too dry. You haven't assessed that and the floor blows up and you get a bill for $50,000 from the insurance company plus a whole bunch of temporary accommodation. Okay, so just don't assess the current installation and do like for like. You need to assess the current installation against the current standards and see if you can do like for like. Okay, really important. We want to make allowances for movement. So acclimatization. Anyone who's done any training with me before, or anyone who's read any of our kind of updated information will know that I'm big on acclimatizing timber floors, solid timber floors after you install them. Why do I say that? And I say that because as well, even if you do really great acclimatization like that bottom right-hand side picture, especially in an insurance job, generally you're ripping out a wet floor in a moist environment in a home that's not lived in. A moist environment in a home that's not lived in, that may have drying equipment in it, that may have latent conditions, water and stuff in it, is not going to be the in-service conditions of that home going forward. If it's got drying equipment in there, it's too dry. If it's got latent conditions and water in there, it's too wet. No matter what, it's locked up and it's not right. So what happens is if you acclimatize that timber, the top of the stack is different to the bottom of the stack. Where you put the boards is not correct. And moisture gradients, so the bottom of the board being wet and the top of the board being dry, doesn't happen until you install a floor, especially if you're installing it direct to joists. One of the problems with installing a floor direct to joist is that you don't create a subfloor space. There is no high humidity in the subfloor because there is no subfloor. Okay, there's no subfloor cavity until you put the floor in, which means you can't develop a moisture gradient until you put the floor in. So acclimatizing timber is, I think, best done, not always, but especially if you're taking on moisture, is best done after installation. With an insurance company, you butt heads with people saying, but I need this done in 3 weeks. It's really, really important that you push back on that, and you need to do it gently, and you need to do it consistently, and you need to do it in writing. You need to say, this timber floor is going to take 2 or 3 weeks to settle after I install it. And if I sand it the day after I install it, it will cup or peak or move or gap in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I can't stop that. It's really important that I lay this floor and we let it settle, we let it move, we let it cup, we let it twist, we let it gap, and then I'm going to sand it flat for you and you're going to have a happier customer. It's really, really important. The other thing to know about that, and this caught I'm going to look at it on Friday morning, bit me in the ass again, is that remember that in winter, it takes about twice as long as it does in summer, okay? Temperature affects speed of moisture uptake in timber. So in summer or in warm climates, timber takes on moisture twice-ish as fast as cold, okay? So Melbourne winter takes you a really long time to acclimatise your timber. Wet season in Cairns, it's really, really fast. Okay, I had a job where we did this. We laid a floor. We left it for 2 weeks. It was spotted gum, so it's a bit slow to move. We left it for 2 weeks, and then we sanded it flat. In summer, that would have been fine. In winter, it wasn't quite enough, and it moved for about another week and a half, and I had to sand the floor twice. Okay, so what the issue with acclimatization is your time pressure from the insurance company. Okay. Accelerated drying of floors. Here we go. We're going right. Accelerated drying of floors is difficult. I'm not sure if there's anyone on the call today that deals with accelerated drying of floors, but sometimes you're going to run into the insurance builder says, I've had the restoration guys in there, it's fine, it's all been dried, it's ready to go. So they might be talking about a subfloor and they might be talking about a timber floor or something that you're going to sand and polish. One of the things I would say to you is that accelerated drying of floors, we cover this in depth in the 2-day assessing timber floors courses, and we do some more targeted training throughout the year. But one of the things I'll tell you is that accelerated drying of floors is not very well understood, and it's usually executed reasonably poorly, to be honest with you. The issue with accelerating drying of floors is that it almost never works the way that people think it works. To dry the floors, you either need to heat, the 3 basic things are, you need to heat it up. Like I just said, that mortar moves quicker when it's hotter. So if it's cold, the water's hard to get in and out of the wood. So you want to heat things up to mobilize the moisture. You've then got to dry it out. So the moisture, dry the air above it or below it, so that the mobilized water in the wood wants to get out to the dry air. That's the system. The problem is that if that is a suspended timber floor, so if it's on bearers and joists or on battens and you can get to the underside, that's fine because you're only drying the wood. But if you've got a timber floor that's installed on plywood on concrete, what you're trying to do is dry the air so much that you dry the wood, so much that you dry the plywood, so much that you dry the concrete. Okay, so the air has to be so hot and dry that you need to get the timber far drier than it wants to be, so it sucks the water out of the plywood, and the plywood also needs to be far drier than it wants to be, so you can suck the water out of the concrete. That equation is not physically possible to do. So if someone tells you that they've dried a floor and it's an install and they didn't have an ability to dry the floor from above and below, so a floor on joists, be very, very skeptical, and you need to do moisture gradient testing before you accept that subfloor, before you accept that floor to sand. Okay, moisture gradient testing on a accelerated drying of floor is the only thing you're going to do. If you're assessing whether you should accelerate and dry a floor, talk to us, do the training, but it needs to be able to dry from both sides. And if there's a subfloor, a concrete subfloor with any sort of substrate, it's not going to work. Okay, rip the floor out. I'd love to go into that more, but well, there you go. It's not going to be difficult. So the one on the left-hand side, right? Water gets wet from the top. The water gets through that solid timber floor pretty quickly because it doesn't suck up much moisture. Pine does a little bit, solid timber not so much. You get a little bit of moisture stuck in that layer of particle board, but a lot of the water goes straight past the joist and out into either the room underneath and the ceiling falls down, or it goes into the soil underneath. That floor dries from underneath the joist, underneath the particle board, and it dries from the top. If that timber floor has no particle board and it's straight to the joists, the floor doesn't really get that wet when it gets flooded. Really what happens is you get water in the subfloor space and the humidity affects the board from underneath. So what you want to do is just dry it from underneath. Okay, but the one on the right is the one I'm talking about. Okay, you can't dry it from underneath. The water is stuck on top of that slab. So I've got to suck all the water out. So the plywood's got to suck the water out of the concrete and the timber's got to suck the water out of the plywood. So you've got to get it so dry that you're absolutely going to just twist and destroy the timber. Okay. If you're trying to dry the one on the right, don't bother. Rip it out. Don't even bother. Okay, what else do we have to do? You have to do the right thing. Okay, you've got to follow the current industry standards and guidelines. One of the big ones with this at the moment is hybrid floating floors. Hybrid floating floors were originally released with installation guidelines that said that you could lay it up to 400 square meters and you didn't need to put plastic underneath it. Current industry guidelines and manufacturers' guidelines says that you do 12 by 12 meter rooms or 8 by 8 meter rooms and you must have plastic underneath. So where does the warranty fall? The warranty falls on on you following the rules at the time you installed it. Okay, so if you installed it 18 months ago without plastic in a 200 square meter room, you're fine. But if you do it today, you're not. Okay, so this is that lifetime warranty thing. If you installed it as per the guidelines at the time you installed it, you're fine, even if the guidelines change. But if you didn't follow the guidelines at the time you installed it, and something happens, then absolutely you'll be in trouble for it. Okay. So especially with hybrid and it moves quickly, you need to follow the current guidelines. Okay. Whether that's Australian standards, whether that's the NCC, whether it's the, it's our industry standards, which are being updated. I just finished the parquetry one-ish today, I think. So it'll be coming soon. That's what you need to do. Okay. You need to follow the standards to the best of your ability. Follow known installation systems. Okay. If it was the floor was installed, one of the great ones is you replace a floating floor and the customer says, I didn't have control joints at my doorways in my last floor. It doesn't matter. You need to have them this time. Okay. Because usually don't say the last one was wrong. Usually say industry standards and accepted methods of installation have changed with new information, and unfortunately, to provide you with a lifetime warranty, we need to put these expansion joints in. This is what they look like, and this is where they're going. If they say no, you just kick it up the tree to the insurance company. I can't provide a warranty with this unless they let me put these trims in. Okay, that's what you do. Keep records. Okay. Written records in the ATFA records and checklists, yeah, it's okay. What's better? Photos, videos, emails. Okay, absolutely. Photos, videos, emails. Pre-existing damage. Everything you can photo and video of the home before you touch it is the most valuable stuff you can do. And then you want to do photos and videos of your methods and your testing. Photos of you doing board width measurements, photos of you doing moisture checks, photos of you doing concrete moisture checks. Okay, but the most important ones you've got are the ones that you do before anyone touches the floor, the records of what it was before, because those rose-colored glasses come on, and Mrs. Smith said, my last floor was perfect. It didn't move, it didn't squeak, it had none of these black marks in it, and it was beautiful. And you go, well, here's a video of your shitty floor that I replaced for you. You're welcome. Okay, really, really, really important. Okay, expectations of those involved. Okay, so when the floor is installed, the owner it has an expectation that it will not have any manufacturing defects. It will perform its task as a floor. It'll have a certain appearance, sound, and feel, and it will not degrade quickly. The industry has additional expectations that it'll be covered by generic or product-specific installation application and instructions. So industry, me, I'm saying you had to do it properly, okay? The product manufacturer is saying that you had to have done it properly, okay, and the floor will be appropriately maintained. A big one with this is old 2-pack polyurethane coated floors replaced with water base. Now, we understand generally that 2-pack solvent-borne polyurethane, whilst it is, yes, it's very hard wearing, you shouldn't at all put it on a new solid timber floor because you'll get edge bonding, okay? And we also know that it's super bad for you, okay? It's got heaps of stuff in it that's not fantastic for your health, for either you or for the homeowner. So we understand that there's quite common to not put a yellowing edge bonding 2-pack polyurethane on a floor, and we're going to use a really good quality 2-pack water-based polyurethane instead, okay, or something different. That is going to look different and perform different to their old coating, and it's really important that you've explained that to the homeowner, but you need to explain it in writing because they're going to say that you never told me that. And when the insurance company says, why didn't you explain that you were changing this coating? That's not what they had before. You don't just say, oh yeah, we had a conversation. You say, well, I actually met them, we had a conversation, and here's the email that I sent them explaining all that information that they read and understood. Okay. So that's really, really important. Managing those expectations on, especially in the stuff we're going to change. Okay. You had, I'll show you in a second. We had replacement. This wasn't our job. You're going to see how shit it looks, but it was old Baltic pine and new Baltic pine. Okay. It's going to look different. It's going to look heaps different. It's going to be a far different color. The coating is going to be a different color. The board, the knots are going to be different. The strength is going to be different. Everything about it's going to be different, but it is a Baltic pine floor. Now that needs to be communicated to everybody so that when or if someone complains, you can't just say, I told them about that. You need to be able to prove that you told them about that. And that's where your photos, videos, and emails come in. Okay. I can't stress it enough. So here we go. What was required? Damage to some areas of an older Baltic pine floor. Okay. So from an insurance company's point of view, not all areas were approved to be replaced. Okay. Once the area was previously, there was one area that was previously replaced with cypress pine in this house. Okay. And then a whitewash was applied to all areas in the home. So we had an old Baltic pine floor. They'd put a cypress pine extension in it and they'd put a whitewash over the whole thing. Okay. So that's what the insured that's the floor that got damaged, and then the insured had an expectation that that's what they were going to get back. Okay, so we've got a whitewashed Baltic floor with some whitewashed cypress at the back, and that's a bit of their floor that looked okay. Okay, partial replacement. So that is the recoated cypress on the left. Okay, so it's been recoated with whitewash over the top, and then we've got a section of the replaced new Baltic pine floor on the right. Okay, so we had the older floor with a bit of gaps in it. It was a bit darker. Yeah, the cypress looks different, and then we've got the new Baltic section. Okay, everything's going well until you see this. Now, that's not real good. Okay, but that's what the insurance company approved. Okay, they want you to terminate at this door junction, and we only want you to do patches in these areas where there's been previous damage. So whose fault is that? Is it the homeowner's fault? Should they just, that's Baltic pine floor with installed in the same way, it's the same size, it's similar grading, it's got a whitewash on it. So is there, can we get anyone who's brave enough to unmute their microphone and say that the homeowner is being unreasonable, that's good? No one's comfortable with that. So let's talk about, so we all agree that that's not okay. Whose fault is it? Is it the insurance company's fault for not approving more widespread replacements? Does anyone think that the photo on the left is okay because it terminates in a straight line and the photo on the right is not okay? Or is anyone happy with the photo on the left? Anyone? Is anyone more happy with the photo on the left? Could live with it?
I just think they're both
photo on the
not
left for
okay.
me.
Yeah, Dylan's both not okay.
Yeah.
But so Dylan, so for those who don't know, Dylan's my senior project manager. I said that manages my insurance work. So this wasn't us, Dylan. You didn't do this. You didn't do this.
Oh,
This is
I know.
someone else. This is someone else. So if you were, let's get Dylan to game this. If you were told by the insurance company to do this repair, and you've got a pretty good idea, I think we knocked one of these back not long ago actually. If you got told to do that, stop at that junction there, and they said, no, I'm sorry, that is the limit of the repair. That's what we're going to do. What are you doing? What are you saying?
Well, I actually get asked to do this sort of thing frequently. So on site, on my inspection, my initial inspection, I would be talking to the homeowner about what the insurance scope allows for, which is the left or the right.
Yep.
And what they're going to expect to see if we do that. Then I would also try and find photos of examples of how that might look. I've actually got quite a few photos that I keep for these sort of situations, particularly Baltic pine, because new Baltic pine is always much lighter than the old Baltic pine. And if they agree to it verbally, that's fine. And then I will send them a very detailed scope of works explaining the differences with those photos attached and ask them to sign off on it before we did it.
Yep.
Most of the time, they're not happy with it. So that goes back to the insurance builder, who then talks to the insurance company, and it might get cash settled, or they might allow to replace additional areas. Sometimes the homeowner comes to the party and says, hey, I want it to all look the same. I'll pay for the rest of it to be replaced. So they're the best situations, but to do a job like that and that without it being completely understood and signed off in writing, that's a disaster.
Yeah. And what they're going to do is, what happens is the insurance company says, well, no, that's the limit of the repair. And so what does the insured do? They go walking through that new section and they find anything they could possibly find to say why it's wrong and it wasn't done properly. Okay. They just go looking for a reason to come back and fix something. Like they just go find something. Okay. So it doesn't matter that you did the right thing. So I would suggest that in this situation, as Dylan said, this floor repair should never have happened because the homeowner complained about it, right? So this floor repair should never have happened. So I would suggest that there's blame to share here. So the homeowner probably could have been a bit more aware that old Baltic pine and new Baltic pine is going to look different, but they're not flooring experts. The flooring contractor, the person in Dylan's position who went out there and looked at it, 100% needed to tell everybody that this is going to look different, okay? And they need to have done it. They say that they had the conversations, but there was no records in writing between anyone to anyone, okay? The insurance builder should have also been aware, especially that patch on the right. They needed to be more aware that this is not a great idea. What they could have done is, even if the insurance company had come to said that's the photo on the left that we're going to terminate at that joint, look, you probably can put a threshold board or something there. You can probably do something to make that look better. But the patch on the right, like why? So we've got the patch on the left that had a whole section of floor removed. Why those removed boards weren't used to fix the patch on the right, I'll never know, because that would have been a better idea too. So there's always a way to do something a little bit better. But the real thing that was missing is there was no communication back to the insurance company in writing, and then the insurance company's made a poor decision. So they've either made a decision, they should know really that they input someone, that panel builder or the insurance company or the insurance system or their loss adjuster really should have enough experience by the time they're making big decisions to know that that's going to look shithouse. But the flooring contractor really does have an obligation to say that this is a bad idea for these very specific reasons. This is what you could do about it. Please make a sensible decision. Okay, that's the conversations that need to happen, because that outcome is the insurance. So the flooring contractor, the actual workmanship, the coating, the sanding, the boards was done to standard, but the outcome is never going to be accepted. Okay, and everyone just looks for a reason to blame the flooring contractor. That's what happens. Okay, so what went wrong? So the communication from the contractor was not clear enough regarding the likely color difference. The insurance company didn't take on board the issues with using new and old timber, and the homeowner didn't consider the warnings provided enough. Okay, if the communication was in writing, this becomes a different story, because the flooring contractor can then say, I told you this was a bad idea and you told me to do it anyway. Now it's all he said, she said, and at the end of the day, the flooring contractor doesn't get paid. Okay, and it's ugly. Nobody's happy in that situation. The homeowner is pissed because they've got an ugly looking floor. The insurance company loses their client, so they don't get that renewal, and they've paid for a repair that no one's happy with. The insurance builder gets dragged through the coals because they've got complaints and they haven't met their KPI, and the flooring contractor didn't get paid. Nobody is happy with that outcome. Okay, so it's really important. The communication was the thing that went wrong. So, questions, queries. We just gave you the horror stories of why you shouldn't do insurance work. The truth of it is, insurance work is kind of cool because it's not market led. Okay. The good thing about insurance, I just told you all the reasons not to do insurance work. And then I told you that we do insurance work. Why do we do insurance work? It's because it's not tied to market cycles. Okay. Insurance is tied to events. So if you get wind and rain or hail or floods, then the insurance work will flow through, and there's a pipeline of work with a reasonable margin that is outside of the general market conditions. So if no one's got money to spend on floors and retail is down, that doesn't affect insurance work to anywhere near the same extent. Okay, so it's an avenue of work that can absolutely supplement income for contractors, retailers, and even manufacturers. That's outside of the general scope, but it comes with a whole set of risks versus rewards that you need to fully comprehend before you jump into it. Okay, so the main ones are that the homeowner is at the end of a long, frustrated process more often than not. The insurance builder, the person who's giving you the work order, who's communicating with you, usually has a really high workload, and they don't really have the time to manage your site and the communication from you back to the homeowner to the insurance company in a timely enough manner. Okay, and the burden, the threshold of acceptability for insurance work is really high, because the insurance company doesn't want repeat claims, so they do that lifetime warranty. And remember, it's not a lifetime warranty. It's being able to prove that the installation was executed in accordance with all current standards and codes. Okay, but if you can do those things, and it takes practice, it's a line and an avenue of work that falls outside of the market cycle. Okay, and at the moment, I know things are getting busier again in Sydney. I'm not sure about other parts of the country, but at a time over the last few months, it's been absolutely vital for our business. Okay, at times when we're really busy, it's a pain in the ass, but when we're not, insurance work can be the difference between keeping all your staff and not keeping all your staff. Okay, it's between having a job to go to next week and not having a job to go to next week. Okay, it can also be the nail in your coffin if you get it wrong. So questions. It's complicated, but is there any questions or queries? Anything at all? Firstly, about insurance work, and then you've got 6 or 8 minutes to ask me anything you want to ask me, because I'm here to answer questions.
Yeah, please just unmute yourself, guys. If you
Yeah,
want,
just
or you can type
unmute
in.
and go.
I'll say go.
Yeah, Phil, I had one where we got we were a third party contractor to do some repairs on a herringbone parquetry floor in a coastal environment, and the particular retailer was the one that contracted us, but he was the one that was contracted via the insurance company.
Yep.
And when we received the parquetry stock, it was boxes and boxes of mismatched old product that was stored in the back of the workshop for several years, and in their eyes was a good opportunity to use up some old material. But when we tried to align the pattern, we were, various moisture readings on the blocks of wood, various dimension changes, and surprise, the pattern didn't work for a simple herringbone. We pushed back and said, look, this is not okay. This is not working. What do you want us to do? Oh, just keep proceeding. I said, this is a recipe for disaster. Well, surprise, we didn't get paid off the back of the job because everyone started getting grumpy. The homeowner was like, well, this isn't what I expected from my new floor compared to the original one, as you were saying before.
Yep.
And insurance builder was basically passing the buck back to the retailer, and the retailer was passing the buck back to us. So it was a messy situation all around, but some important lessons learned, I guess, along the way.
And it's hard, right? Because it's from a contractor point of view that you've got that 4 days put aside. You can't go find 4 days of work for yourself and your workers overnight. So
yeah,
the temptation is to proceed with the work because I need the work. But if you've got the bandwidth to take the longer view, and I know it's hard, but it's you're not going to get paid, and you could end up liable for repairs that you didn't get paid for.
Yep.
So it's difficult.
In that case, the retailer probably needed to have worn the full heat because it was his ultimate decision to proceed. But we got caught in the middle of that one.
Yeah, and everyone got caught in the middle. The homeowner got caught in the middle. The insurance builder, the insurance company, the retail, everyone got caught in the middle of that decision. Which sucks. Any other questions? We're good?
We're all looking pretty good. Anybody else, guys, want to type it in? If you can't, don't have a microphone, please do.
So the big tips. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of big tips. The first big tip is, I think that, and Dylan is probably the driver of this, so I'm going to give you credit where credit's due. Like I said, we used to take photos of pre-existing damage, and now we do videos. I think it's really, really important when you walk onto site, maybe not when you're there with the homeowner, but certainly when you start your repair works, do a walkthrough video. It's a really, really good idea. It stops you getting blamed for things that are not your fault, and it can also help you go back and look for details of how did that board finish at the doorway, and how was that skirting cut. So really, really important. But the pre-existing damage stuff is great. Don't skimp on subfloor inspections. Okay, like you're going to get a trim wrong, and you're going to have a squeaky board, and you're going to have a coating issue. They're all going to happen, and you fix them. But if you get a subfloor wrong and a whole floor has to be removed and replaced, and a kitchen pulled out, and someone put in accommodation, it can absolutely bury your whole business forever. Okay, so don't skimp on subfloor with everything. But with insurance repairs, there's a temptation to pull the brush box out and put the brush box in. But if the brush box was from 1977 and it wasn't kiln dried, and you put new stuff in that was, it's going to explode on you, and it's going to be your fault. Okay, so pre-start videos, don't skip on subfloor. inspections. And I think the third most important thing, if I can only have three, the third most important thing is do all of your communication in writing. And as Dylan said, photos where you can, okay? Photos are much more clear. So if you've got a scope of works that says select grade parquetry on it, or it says rustic grade parquetry on it, and you've pulled out select grade, the word rustic to a homeowner doesn't mean much. But if you sent them 2 photos saying you've got this and I'm giving you that, that's very, very hard to argue that you didn't do the right thing. Okay. So pre-start videos, don't skimp on subfloor inspections, and do all your communications in writing. And then you should be able to safely navigate this lucrative but risky insurance world, provided you've got the knowledge and the expertise to execute.
Guys, I've got a question, Phil. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, awesome. It's Frank here. Phil, question. I've been through this with you before, but I just need a bit of a refresher and just a reminding, as well as any documentation. Plank on ply, saturated floor, no reaction to the timber, probably based on the time we've attended site. Basically, plank on ply, we've always been told, and I'm pretty sure with the ATFA training we've had, we're going to have to pull that stuff up because this moisture's sitting in there.
Yep.
Trying to explain this to the clients or the insurance builders and stuff like that is where they probably just, I wouldn't say that's what we're saying, but is there any sort of factual written documentation that can explain this a little bit better we can provide to them?
Yeah, it's a good one, actually, information sheet. So the answer is it exists in training documentation, but probably not in documentation that's good for you to show. So that's
was in training, definitely.
I definitely needed some more work to do. That's fantastic, Frank. Thanks for that.
Okay.
But
Josh is laughing, mate. He's like, "Yeah, I told you so."
As long as it's not me.
But a good way to do it is. A good way to show them, is on site, is you do a moisture gradient test and just show them that, hey, look, the moisture is higher at the bottom than at the top. If that still doesn't get them over the line, find an area like under the dishwasher in a corner and do like a core hole. So get a hole saw and drill through the plywood and just pull a hole out and just show them that it's black and wet underneath and dry at the top, and I can't get to that water. But yes, documentation that advises people that the likelihood of success for restoration is it's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because I get that quite a lot, and all my clients I've got good relationships with, so it works a treat. But it's just easier when they get questioned by the loss adjusters or the insurance companies, assessors and stuff like that. It's easier just to get that across the line. One more question, if you don't mind. Things like here in WA struggling with different species of timber that we can't get, i.e. whether it be marry or brush box or whatever the case is, those unique circumstances that we have, especially in WA, trying to find closest possible match. The amount of shit fights I have trying to tell someone that we can't mix New South Wales blackbutt keying into existing WA blackbutt is probably one of the biggest challenges we have, trying to get that across to them. So much so that I'll recommend cash settlement or refuse to do the job in a nice way. So it all works a treat on my side. But we've now started coming across things where we can't obtain those timbers from our normal reputable suppliers. So along comes someone who's decided, whether it be the assessor or the homeowner decides to say, hey, I can get it from Tom Jones down the street where we've never heard of, which is not a block of timber that's going to cut to size. Now, I'm not comfortable personally for that kind of floorboards to be used cut to size. I don't know how long they've had it, where's it been stored, whereas I trust all my other suppliers. Yeah, some people will be like, well, look, we'll take a punt on it and we'll do a moisture test on site, but I don't know, it's too risky for the type of works that we're doing on this kind of stuff. So I totally run from those kinds of things, and I recommend cash settlement. It works all the time.
Is Dylan still on the call? You still here, Dylan? No, he's left. He jumped off. Dave, we have the same position as you, Frank. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do this. Not long ago, we were convinced by a really good builder that's like, no, with this one you should. Like, it's important. You really should do it. And so we did it, and it turned into a cluster duck. It was a nightmare. So, and we knew we shouldn't have done it, and we have said no 100 times. But this time we were like, no. This time, trust us. This time it's a good idea. And you know what, Frank? It was a terrible idea. So your instincts are correct.
Honestly.
don't. Like,
It's, you know what, Phil,
you'd have to be
coming
very
from
comfortable.
insurance, I used to be a general manager for an insurance builder for 7.5 years, and the whole reason I got into flooring was because of crap like this. So I do stand my ground, and I do basically try and protect the other floor layers by telling the supervisors, please do not give it to another person if this is the way they get it. If for any reason they can get it from a reputable supplier and I can't get it, then that's fine. But
That's
if
fantastic.
it's coming from Jack Jones down the road, please be careful, because it'll come back and bite both the flooring guy as well as the builder. So now that's all good. So the ply, as soon as you've got something for that, that'll be awesome if you flick through.
I'll find
That's
something,
it from me. Thank you, gents.
Very good. Yeah, and so with that, so if you
Thanks,
decide that if you're using someone else's timber or something like that, and this is not just insurance, this is forever. It's really in those situations, it's really important that you need to do a really clear line between your liability and the product liability. The best way to do that is to really clearly document that you carried out your installation and finishing and other associated products absolutely in line with the install guides and the Australian standards and the industry standards. So in that situation, so for insurance work, I would be hesitant, but in any work, if you're doing just the installation work, and I think it was Troy before was saying that you got caught with someone supplying dodgy blocks and he's just a contractor. If you're just doing installation work, that's absolutely the time when you need to document that you did your bit right, because the last thing you want to do is only be paid for an install and get held with a product liability, because the product's cost will far outstrip your reimbursement for the installation work. It happens to sanders all the time. The poor guys sand a floor that crowns or they go through a tongue, and they get left replacing a floor and they only got paid to sand it. Okay, so if you're ever doing just a part of the works, and those contractors document the least, but they should be documenting the most. And don't, I know checklists and everything are great. Just take photos and videos and send emails. That's what you got to do. Okay. We're running late, Josh.
Oh, good then. Any last questions, guys? Awesome. Feedback.
Just one last thing, Phil. We did work a year or so back with an insurance builder. Did fairly regular work with them for a while, but they were saying that the feedback they were getting from insurance company, probably loss adjusters, I imagine, was saying that videos are actually carrying a lot more weight now to, as you say, pre-document things or even post-document things. As more evidentiary proof than just photos alone, because they gave a broader context of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we find is the two tips is try and take it in the higher resolution as you can, and make sure you send it in a high resolution. I had one, I'm sure I've told the story before, and poor Dylan again. We had a guy that said that the floor that we installed wasn't a high enough grade. I had select grade, I had a fantastic floor, I want the whole thing replaced. And we had a video walkthrough, and we were actually walking through to look at damage on the walls, but it showed the floor. And the floor that we replaced it with was 1,000 times better than the floor that we'd ripped out. And the video just proved it. The insurance, no one else had photos. And we had this video and we showed them the video and said, look, the new floor is great. And he just got told to go away. Okay. And it would have been huge. It would have been like $30,000 worth of repairs. So, yeah, videos are great.
All right, guys. There will be a recording of today's webinar put up on the ATFA website in the webinar recording section.